Well, welcome to the podcast. My name is Dave, and this is my friend Nate. And if you saw our previous episode, we had our special guests here, Trevor and Brooke, and we're going to continue your story and talk about what life has been like since discovering Jesus. So, Nate, take it away.
Yeah, thanks for coming back with us, guys. I am excited to hear this part of your story, even though it's really not the most exciting stuff that you've been through. It's been treacherous, like hard stuff. And just appreciate upfront your vulnerability to share this with us, because really what we want to see, in all of this is the Jesus story in the midst of your struggle, in the midst of your pain, and how you've walked through some stuff that nobody wants to walk through, and yet your faith has remained constant, probably, grown in the middle of stuff that has been challenging towards it. So where do you guys want to start? What's the best place to talk about the fact that you've come to Jesus, you're walking with him, and then life hits?
I want to start in a worship service.
Okay.
This was right before I discovered I was pregnant with our fourth child. And we were in a worship service, and we were singing Oceans Where My Feet May Wander. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay. So singing Oceans, and God, it was like clear as day. God said, "This is going to be hard, but I'm going to take you through it. We're going deep, but I'm going to take you through it." And I was just like, okay, Jesus.
So
Let's do this.
That was like kind of like a prophetic or premonition type moment, right? You're singing this song and you haven't been through anything.
No.
But you're getting the sense that God's speaking to your heart, going, you're going to go through something hard. Is that right?
Yeah. And I'm so grateful that he did that for me. He didn't have to. But I'm so grateful that he chose to just take a moment in that song, in the chorus, and say, we're about to jump in the deep end, but I'm going to take you through it. And so that is right before I discovered I was pregnant with our fourth child. Complete surprise.
After we had decided to stop. We were done after 3.
Done.
Uh-huh.
And I did not take it gracefully.
Okay.
Not at all. And I like to put in here that this is my story and my perspective. And I share what I share about my feelings towards this pregnancy and in a way to say, like, it's normal, and not to take offense to my experience. I know many moms that struggle with like infertility and stuff, they can get really upset with what I'm about to say. Mm-hmm. But ask them just to respect that this is my story.
Okay.
And that
you're upset about being pregnant.
Yeah.
But that wasn't necessarily without cause, right? Because pregnancy hadn't been easy prior to this, right?
No. I get extremely sick entire pregnancy, lose 30 to 50 pounds. I have PICC lines. I've had home nurses, preterm labor between 18 and 21 weeks, bed rest the entire pregnancy. And my oldest, I had 3 kids. This was my 4th pregnancy. And my oldest was 4 when this happened.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
That's leading to you being angry.
Yeah, a lot. And what like made me more angry was Trevor was like, okay. And I was like,
I remember.
He's like, all right, yeah.
Excuse
Well,
me.
I remember that night when she showed me, she did a picture or something
so
to
cute.
announce, the pregnancy to me. And I looked at it and I go, oh, okay. Like, this is
I'm
the
like-
next card that was drawn. We're going to play it, right?
I'm like, did you read that right?
Like, yeah, you're pregnant. And she was not happy that I wasn't upset.
You didn't join in her emotional
Right.
Yeah.
party.
So, I mean, and this is how we've done a lot of stuff. It's like, this is the card that's drawn.
Mm-hmm.
We can't change it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can either sit here and wallow in self-pity, or we can just embrace it and move forward.
Yeah.
You see, I thought I'd be like clever and not text him I was pregnant this time.
Okay.
Yeah. So my first 2 pregnancy tests, he was there when I took them. My third, I did not tell him I was taking a test, and I texted him that I was pregnant.
Okay.
So this time I was like, self-control. I'm not going to text him I'm pregnant because this is going to be a shocker.
You were ready for his reaction.
Yeah.
And then you didn't get the reaction you
Gosh,
wanted.
I was like, I wasn't really like sure what to expect, but I expected a reaction.
Some sort of reaction.
He literally said, okay. Those were his words. And I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, okay. And I was like, no, not okay. Not okay. I am not okay with this. And I'm like, I'm not ready to throw up for 9 months.
Right.
I'm not ready to not be able to eat or drink or get out of bed.
Yeah, and you weren't ready to go through another tough pregnancy while being a mom of 3 toddlers.
Oh, yeah.
Young.
Young,
Yeah.
really young.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was a lot part
Like I was still
'cause you knew
potty
what the-
training the oldest 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just barely getting out of 3 kids in diapers.
So this is after the whole experience you had in worship
Yeah.
with the song Oceans, that where you felt like God was speaking to your heart. And so you're upset, and then what starts to happen?
I start throwing up. And I'm like full on denial that I'm pregnant, and I'm pretty sure like we're 4 months in and I'm insistent I have the flu. And then I get appendicitis at 17 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
And I go into the hospital and they do a scan and they come back and they're like, you're quadruple the normal size.
Your appendicitis?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My appendix was
So
quadruple.
You had an appendectomy?
Oh, yeah. So fast that they almost didn't let me like pee before they took me back.
Wow.
Like the OR doctor got in there before the OR nurses got in there to prep me.
Wow.
And he was all like, oh, hey, no one told you what's going on? Oh, well, this is what's going on. And he's like, and I have to say, like, you're early enough along on your pregnancy that if something happens, we can't save the baby. And I said, I know. I have irritable uterus, and I go into preterm labor like 18 to 20 weeks. And he was just like, okay, we're going to see how fast I can get this done. And
Wow.
I'm pretty sure he did the surgery in half the time.
I think it was like 45 minutes or something.
Yeah.
It's fast.
It was super fast. And then, make it out the other side and they're like, hey, so you can't lift anything over like 5 pounds the rest of your pregnancy. And I'm like, sweet. I have a 1-year-old who is going to have to learn how to climb into their car seat now.
Mm-hmm.
And, so we figure out like this whole stool system. He climbs up, climbs on a stool, climbs into his car seat, then has to turn around in his car seat so I can buckle him. And it just like complicated things. And I was like, see, God, didn't need this.
Told you.
Because we know better than God, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously.
We know easier than God.
Yeah.
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 Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do know easier than God, that's for sure. So fast forward to his birth, and I could not have asked for a better birth. most amazing birth to end on. I do water birth, and the midwife, he was coming so fast, the midwife didn't get in the room in time.
Wow.
And, I caught him, brought him up out of the water and laid him on my chest. And it was just like, you're mine. And it was a split second of like, I just made a whole pregnancy worth of bonding in 10 seconds because I didn't bond with him when I was pregnant.
That's cool.
And I think, it's not a mistake we named him Grayson. One person once said to me, is that because that's the closest boy name to the name Grace? I said, no, but that makes sense now.
Yes, it does.
And this is where I have to throw in a trigger warning. So we're about to discuss maternal mental health. And if you are struggling in any way, just skip this section of the podcast and go on, because we are specifically going to jump into my experience with postpartum psychosis, and that's heavy.
Yeah.
So I had like a week of amazing bliss with him. And I remember going to my 1 week appointment, and I told my midwife, I'm like, this seems too perfect. And I'm like, it's like another shoe is going to drop. And it did. He was, I think, 10 days old the first time I hallucinated. For those who don't know, postpartum psychosis is more than suicidal thoughts, self-harm thoughts. It's the women that you typically hear on the news about killing their children in addition to committing suicide. It's something you don't mess with, and you typically need immediate medical help. Most women, if not hospitalized in the first couple weeks or gone immediately on rescue medication, you have a high rate of not surviving. With help, you have a high rate of success being, living, but it has to have early intervention. So, it was that night. I was rocking him to sleep, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was a man in the backyard going to hunt me down. Like, these experiences are so real, you can't take them and separate them from reality. I explain the experience as there was a literal demon in my head I was wrestling with. I don't know how else to describe my experience. I had many intrusive thoughts, self-harm, and I went as far as being concerned I was going to harm my baby. And that I don't think you can put into words that feeling as a mother, to be the point where you fear you're going to hurt your child. I am lucky, blessed, watched over, that my maternal instincts immediately took over the situation, and I recognized that was not a logical thought.
That wasn't you.
That wasn't me. And that my instinct was to protect my child from myself. I went months. Trevor had to have known I was not well, but I hid so incredibly well the depths I was experiencing.
And for a long time.
In the middle of experiencing these intrusive thoughts, some and psychosis, paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any recollection of like where you're at in your faith, in with Jesus in the midst of all that?
Yeah. So, in the thick of psychosis, and going through it, I thought, well, it doesn't matter if I die or if I commit suicide, because there's no longer degrees of heaven like I was raised to believe, and I'm already saved. So that's a really bad thought process. But I believed in God, and this did not affect my faith yet.
Yeah.
Trevor would like leave for work in the mornings, and I just cry and hang on to him. And he was just like, I'm going to work.
It was something I didn't understand. I'm like, I'm supposed to leave and go provide, and you're having a freak out that I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Like, how do I reconcile that?
You didn't know how serious this was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was something I didn't. I'm like, why are you worried about me leaving? Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, we need to eat. We need somewhere to live. Like, I have to go and do this. And
Right.
yeah, I didn't understand.
And I was freaking out because I didn't know it was the last time I was going to see him. God used our relationship as a driving force for me to stick it out. And I'm extremely grateful he did. But it wasn't me trying to like save my own life. It wasn't me trying to be here to be a mother. It was the thought, guys, it was the thought of, I don't want Trevor to remarry and raise my kids with another mom.
Yeah.
Great selfish thoughts.
Yeah.
But it worked.
But God can use our human, sinful, self-centered side to work for us sometimes.
God will meet us where we're at.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to say God will meet you where you're at. And he met me where I was and allowed me to use very self-centered thoughts as a motivator to go another day.
Were you at a place in, obviously you're going through some major mental illness. Were you at a place where you were cognizant of the fact that you were going through that and going, God, why?
Oh, yeah.
Why are you allowing this in my life? Like, can you talk about that?
You're not in a constant state of a psychosis episode, right? And they can't sometimes come in more like waves. So I'd go through times where I was like really struggling still, but being like, hello, God. Like, why? Why me? Why are we doing this? Can't you just fix it already? Can you just make it end so I never actually have to tell anyone? I know you can make it end, dear God. Like, where's my miraculous healing story?
Right.
God uses everything for your good and his good. And what that means really is for the good of your relationship. It's not like, obviously, psychosis wasn't good for me, but it brought me closer to God.
Okay.
And I have a new relationship with him because of it.
Which, you went 18 months until you kind of like said, I can't do this anymore. You want to talk about that point of the experience and what happened there?
Yeah. So I was hospitalized, and as soon as I admitted, I was like, oh my gosh, this was the worst decision ever. And I was just like, God, I take it all back. I will promise to live if you just release me right now. And was really, if I'm like, psychosis is hard, but it was a whole different thing to be hospitalized and taken away from all my security and from Trevor and my house and be thrown in with all these people who don't know you and be told, yeah, now you get to heal and you get to get stabilized in an environment where no one is stable.
Right.
And I had many pleading conversations in my bed there with God. Luckily, I was able to take my Bible in because it was softbound. And every night, like I'd check out early and I'd just go sit and read my Bible in bed until I fell asleep. And my roommate would come in and she would take my glasses off me and put my Bible on the bedside table and turn the light off. Because I would I couldn't fall asleep unless I was reading the Bible. I was in such a distressed state of mind. And I say being hospitalized was the worst experience, but was also what saved me and where God gave me kind of a vision for where he was taking my life at that point. And I'm extremely grateful for that. It was another 7 months, 7.5 months until I really was stable and like stabled on medication. But in that 7 months, like that was a really hard time still. And that's when I really got mad with God and when I really questioned him.
Okay.
That was the first time I'd really wrestled with my faith through that experience. And I was like, hello, God. Like I am fighting every day still.
When you say you question God, like were you questioning his existence or were you questioning like his goodness even though you knew he existed?
No, I really got to the point where I questioned his existence for a little bit. And I was just like, I have been fighting so hard. I put so much faith in you that you will carry me through this. And I see you nowhere. Like, I don't expect to feel you, but I see you nowhere in my life. Like, where are you? And it was really hard. And I remember saying something to Trevor about it. And he said something profound. I don't remember what it was. I remember.
I wish I remembered.
I'm gonna take a guess and say it's okay.
Kind of like the pregnancy. It's okay.
It's okay.
I remember where we were. We were downstairs one night after putting kids to bed, and I was just talking to him about everything and where I was struggling. And I just remember after that conversation, like I felt like it was okay that I didn't really question God. I was just so mad at him. It was easier to not acknowledge that I was that mad and just try to be like, oh, you must not even be there if this is what you're doing to me, right?
Trevor, how were you feeling while Brooke is struggling? You know, first your wife's taken into the hospital and then through the next, she's saying 7+ months of her just struggling. Like, where were you at with God in all of that?
So it's kind of funny, not funny. I always joked about the one job I didn't want and one of the worst jobs on the planet is being a mom. And I had to be mom while she couldn't be. Yeah. So I was mom, dad, I was everything. But even going through all that stuff, I never questioned God. Never questioned his existence or never had the self-pity or why me or why this. It's just, this is what we're dealing with and we're just going to keep on going forward.
You're a survivalist.
I guess so.
So you're not sitting here with stuck in like the deeper questions of life. You're like, my kids need me.
Yeah.
And I gotta get through this. And it doesn't help Brooke if I'm like upset about this.
Right.
She's gonna either get better or not get better. Like
there had to be some kind of constant. So that was me and God.
There you go.
Mostly God, but
Mostly God.
I'm a fallible human.
All right.
But-
So then what happens next? Like, so you're angry at God. You're wondering, does he even exist? Then what happens next?
So it's end of July, middle of July. Yeah. And it was like all of a sudden, all at once, the fog was lifted. And it was like I was just me again. And it was like all the therapy, all the medication, all the work, all the pleading and praying, it all came together in one moment. And it was literally like this cloud was just lifted and gone. And I couldn't even rejoice in enough gratitude to God for taking us through that.
Wow.
interesting.
And so through all that time of questioning or being mad or I don't know, whatever it was, I turned around and had to acknowledge it was only by him and through him, and he carried us through it. And now I like to put it at his fingerprints were on us at that point. You weren't just in his hands, but he was so deeply like in the details of the experience that you can see his fingerprints.
And when did you recognize in that experience that God had kind of spoken a soft word of preparation? Did you come to that? Like, you told me that you were going to allow me to go through some stuff.
Yeah. There was one point in my super angry phase at God that I was like, hello, you said you're going to get me through this. And where are you now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, where are you? Waiting for you. But at the end of it all I could do was thank you, God, for taking me through this as you said you would.
Mm.
My statement through it all is, you are faithful. It's that was my slogan.
And to be fair though, like, you'd walk through this season of mental illness and struggle, but the struggles were only beginning.
Oh man.
So let's walk through the next part of that.
If we only knew.
It's a good thing you don't know, because I was only stabilized 6-7 weeks, and all of a sudden in a matter of a week, all these physical symptoms came about, and I went from, normal human to that weekend in complete paralysis, not even always being able to talk. And when I could, it was very slow and robotic. And anyone who had the patience to speak with me was a saint and a half. Because not only was I robotic, but I could be very slowly getting through something and forget what I was saying in the middle of a word, and the conversation would end. So,
And so you talk about this paralysis, like you're basically bedridden
yes.
at this point.
Yeah.
And did you think this was somewhat related to the postpartum coming back, or this felt completely different in the moment? You were clueless.
It was different. I knew it had nothing to do with it, contrary to what the doctor tried to diagnose me with. And Trevor and I both literally laughed at him and said, "You're wrong. You can release me now."
But in that season, I'm trying to remember back because, we had connected with you guys in the midst of this season, some of this season, and you had a little bit of an idea what you thought was going on, and nobody would listen to you.
No.
I remember that part of the story.
Yeah.
So can you describe that?
Yeah. So, have family history of Chiari malformation. That's where your brain is sliding into your spinal cord canal. Yeah. And the doctor literally said, your family history doesn't matter. This is postpartum depression. And I was like, what? Funny. So I was released and I was like, okay, it's on me. Let's figure this out. And I didn't learn, like I had to learn to walk again, everything, but I couldn't even begin to do that until I got the hard neck brace. It was after that I'm a really stubborn person, if you didn't know this yet. So it was after
Trevor agrees.
Yeah.
it was after that, and I was like, hey mom, I need you to go buy me some forearm crutches so I can learn to walk. And they're kind of like, you're cuckoo. And I'm like, you do it or I'm going to make someone else do it. So I was like bound and determined, And I'm like, I just survived postpartum psychosis. I am not going to let this stop my life now. I didn't survive that for this to destroy me. And really, like, God had used that whole mental illness as a time to, like, give me mental strength to endure this next season of life. So I end up having to, like, drive to Vegas and go to Colorado and all these places to get imaging done that I couldn't get done in Utah. And
describe, like, with this particular illness, people probably don't know that you can't just go to any doctor. Like, there's only a few doctors in the United States that even look at this. Isn't that right?
yeah, well, the combination of things I have. So after imaging and things, I was diagnosed with a genetic disorder, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, also known as EDS, and it's a connective tissue disorder. So that was really a root issue. My ligaments stretch and they don't come back. And so that was like the root of my instability in my head and neck. And I was then diagnosed after imaging with essentially it's skull instability and neck instability. So my skull did not sit correctly in my neck and did not turn correctly. It just kind of grinded everywhere. And then my neck vertebrae completely collapsed, sliding back and forth. So essentially between the skull and the neck, it cut off all communication with my body, which is why the paralysis happened.
Yeah.
And which is why when I got in the neck brace, elevated that the discs and the vertebrae, I was able to regain movement, but I did not regain feeling.
Okay.
So did you have like a neuropathy that
Yeah.
like kind of like a cancer patient would have afterwards with like not being able to feel certain things or
No, I couldn't
pain?
feel anything.
Okay.
I couldn't feel a thing. I still have like neuropathy now, but not nearly like anything
not
that was
to the
going on
degree you
there.
did.
Gotcha.
So once I got my diagnosis, then I had to find doctors that could help me. At that time, there were about 5 surgeons in the world that could handle the combination of my issues. And the ones in the state declined my case, which led us to having to seek medical care out of the States. And we ended up sending my case to a doctor in Barcelona, Spain.
And of course, this is covered by your insurance, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Of course, everything's covered.
Our scans weren't even covered.
Your scans weren't covered.
Nope.
No.
Nothing was covered.
No. So our scans weren't covered. We were traveling out of the the state for everything. And we met with this doctor at like 3 a.m. our time. And we're able to ask him questions and talk and go over my imaging. And I felt such hope afterwards. So they sent us a quote of what my surgery would cost. And it was like, now what? Like, how are we going to pay for this?
Right.
And Trevor, being the awesome, go with the flow real estate agent that he is, goes, well, we're going to sell our house.
Just sell it.
It's going to be okay.
We'll just sell it.
It's going to be okay.
Okay.
No big deal. Let's sell the house.
Okay. So you had to end up selling your house
Yeah, we did. We ended up selling our house.
so that you could travel to Spain and get the surgery.
Pay cash for a surgery.
They
Pay
had
cash,
to, you had to
yeah.
pay cash in order to go there and
Yeah.
and set that all up.
up front
Okay.
Wow.
in the middle of COVID.
And we're talking
In the
like
middle of COVID.
hundreds of
Like
thousands
COVID.
of dollars.
No, it
Pandemic.
was so the surgery was 80,000 in Spain plus, travel and hotel and food.
Okay.
So Brooke was there for 6 weeks, but then getting up to that point too with all the scans and travel and imaging is we're probably 120, 130,000 out of pocket.
Yeah,
Right.
we were about
Cash.
130.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, in the middle of COVID, the world shut down and my first surgery was canceled
Because of COVID.
because
Well,
of COVID.
If you guys, everybody remembers in the beginning of COVID, like Europe got hit way
Yeah.
harder and shut
Mhm.
down way faster than anybody else did.
Yeah.
Especially like Italy and Spain and
Mm-hmm.
those countries. So you guys had something scheduled and nope, can't do it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So we had to sell our house and moved into a 1-bedroom
Basement
apartment with 4 children. And it was the weekend we moved in there that the world shut down.
Mhm.
We're all moving and we get notified from news that the world just shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the weekend we're moving, we're leaving our house, going to this tiny space in a basement, and the kids don't get to go to school anymore. So their whole world completely changed in one weekend.
House, school, everything.
Yeah.
It was a
And
lot.
they took that really well.
I don't think it was horrible. The beginning, it
Yeah.
was all right, but
Can you go into some detail describing what they actually did in the surgery?
Yeah.
Because it's pretty incredible stuff.
So there's something
Yeah.
I kind of call a God thing, right? So you have this very unique situation, just a few surgeons in the world that can do it. So the surgeon's liaison, the patient liaison that the surgeon has, who deals with all the patients in the back and forth, is actually from Provo.
No way.
Lived in Provo for 20 years, met her husband at BYU. So, I mean, what are the chances that you have this very unique thing? You fly halfway across the world to be with someone from your hometown.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah, it's
incredible. Like,
incredible.
it's the only way to describe it for me is it's a God thing, right? God is definitely in the details and he knew what he was doing. We had to be there 100%. That's where we were supposed to be.
I felt extremely blessed to be able to go see the surgeon we did see. So essentially the surgery, they open you up, they pull you into proper traction with your skull and neck, and then they screw rods into your skull and your vertebrae. And then they put cadaver bones on top, and then you're supposed to fuse.
You're supposed to fuse.
You're supposed to fuse.
Yeah.
So that's like foreshadowing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That is foreshadowing. So you're supposed to fuse. I only half fused. Something they've like never seen before.
Is this part of the whole stubborn thing you got? You just,
Yeah, it could be.
It
Yeah.
could
It very well could be.
I think I'm just like really trying to stand out, being unique
be. Right.
amongst like the most unique of the unique,
Yeah.
you know? I've really got to make my name somewhere.
You're not happy with the top 1%. You got to be the top half percent.
Yeah. So we do my imaging a year post-op, and I have only fused on my right side and not my left side. My left cadaver bone is literally just hanging out there.
To this day?
To the last imaging, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've done 2 imaging, and the last imaging was 6 months ago. It was 18 months post-op, and it was still just chilling there.
What's interesting is it hasn't been rejected, hasn't been accepted, but the body hasn't rejected it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this anomaly.
It's in limbo.
Yeah.
In limbo.
Your bones are in purgatory.
Yeah.
Ah.
We won't go into what that means theologically, but yes.
That's another time.
So, that is partly why I'm still in a neck brace.
Okay.
You can't predict like how the surgery is going to help you, but typically the hope is that you're not in a neck brace afterwards. And I very briefly was not in a neck brace before I started having problems again. And I like to just blame it on the cadaver bone that's doing not its job.
Yeah.
If it is that or not, I can't say for sure. But
So is there a chance that it'll still fuse? Because
yeah,
it hasn't been rejected?
Yeah.
yeah, they have no idea if or when or like what would be the next step for them. There's a couple of different things we could do, but they're super expensive, non-insured, insurance covered things, of course.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm in this neck brace. We've done this crazy journey around the world during COVID, and we've sold our house, and we're living with these 4 boys under 5 years of age. Like, they're 2 to 7 at this point. And like, they can't do anything. No friends, no social, no church, no school. And we're like, I'm about to go freaking crazy with them. I get back from surgery and we have a house we're building.
Mm-hmm.
By we, I mean Trevor is literally building this house and is not home while I'm still recovering from this huge surgery. And it was so overwhelming.
For you to deal with the boys and recover.
Yeah, with no support. I went, jump back. I went from postpartum psychosis, where I was being babysat, always helped with the kids, to recovery, where all of a sudden I'm a full-time mom with no help, recovering from my head being screwed into, while my husband is spending like 10, 12-hour days
Trying to build you guys
trying
a
to
home.
build us a home.
So you're not in a one bedroom basement apartment.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
There is one thing that we've kind of skipped over, another thing that I think is a God thing. So Brooke's mom was originally going to go with us to Spain, and she decided, because of how the condition of the world was, that she didn't want to go. So we couldn't leave her there because I had to come back after, I think it was there 3 weeks. So we didn't want to leave her there for 3 more weeks alone. So there's another pastor's wife up in Brigham City, and they had planned a missions trip to Thailand before all the COVID stuff hit. So COVID came and shut that trip down. But she had already prepared to travel abroad, had everything up to date, already had her luggage, her passport, everything was ready to go. And it was one of the biggest blessings that we asked her. She asked her husband and her adult children, and without hesitation, they all said, no, that's what you need to do. You need to go. Yeah.
And she gave us a response in like 15 hours of me asking her, because we needed to book tickets like tomorrow.
Yeah.
And That was really a God moment for me. After Trevor left and left me in Barcelona, it was really, really hard.
I remember FaceTiming you, I think a day after that or something.
Yeah, I was really struggling.
Yeah.
And I knew you had gone through a similar medical experience where you were isolated
Yeah.
during COVID. And I was just like, Nate, you know how I'm feeling.
Yeah. I mean, we had that talk
Yeah.
for sure.
And but so Dorothy is who traded Trevor's spots. And it was such a blessing to me though, because every morning we got up and had coffee, and then we started just Bible study together every day. And it ended up being like 3-hour Bible studies every day.
Dorothy's a experienced pastor's wife.
Yes.
Such a godly woman.
That's awesome.
And that was such a blessing for me to be able to survive those last few weeks there. But jumping back forward to building this house, I really have to point out some major God moments there as well. Not only like did he line up the sale of our house exactly when we needed it to, but we are able to also buy a lot that was not listed for sale nearby at not a market value.
Way below
Market value. We are able to find a bank that allowed sweat equity
as a down payment.
Okay.
And God was able to put us in this house that we could accommodate to my new needs and future needs.
So you have some things in the house that are helpful for Brooke in whatever.
Yeah. So
Can you describe some of that?
Yeah. So we have main floor living. Kids are upstairs, but so if Brooke is ever wheelchair bound, it's all accessible with a wheelchair. Very expensive shower because there's no curb. You can just roll right into it. A nice tub to relieve her pain. We raise the countertops to bar height. So every countertop is 42 inches because you can't look down. So we brought the workspaces up. And being able to work with a builder who allowed the sweat equity and for us to pick things, we were able to customize. And then another thing, just a huge God thing. Looking back, that's one of my favorite things now that I'm a believer, being able to look back and see, okay, God totally wove that, right? That was his doing. It was incredible because as we're building this house, for one, we were able to pay for surgery and barely have enough for the required down payment and then the sweat equity for the rest.
Oh, yeah. Barely.
Yeah, barely. And then just as we were building the house, right, we would order our lumber package. And then what happened? Not 30 days later, it skyrocketed. We ordered our exterior package. It skyrocketed. The roofing skyrocketed. After every time we ordered something for the house is when everything started going crazy.
Because of inflation that we're experiencing
Well, the
today.
inflation, COVID, just the demand on everything. We were literally within weeks of almost every single thing we ordered going up in price. It's just, there's too many instances of that happening to know that God, that was totally God. He's in the details of everything. It wasn't by chance. There's no way.
Yeah. That's awesome. So in the one hand, you're like, we gave up this home, which was really new to you guys.
Yeah.
You sold it.
We only lived there 2 years and it was a brand new house.
Yeah, brand new house, 2 years. You sell it to pay for Brooke's surgery and stay out in Barcelona. And then, you're in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment and you start building this thing and you see God's handiwork. Because, it's you got 4 kids.
Yeah.
4 boys. And they're a rambunctious crew.
Yeah.
I've been around them. They need space.
Yep, they do.
And just to see that God is at work in all those details and to look back at that. So how has you have lived through more trials than anybody can imagine in a span of 2.5 years, 3 years?
Something
Brooke?
like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than a lifetime in less than 3 years. How could you guys just summarize and I know we went into some of the details of questioning God, being upset with God, angry with God. But like, as you kind of look through all the ways he was in the details, how would you summarize your faith now compared to before all of this?
Without a shadow of a doubt, I can trust God and believe in God. I don't think I can go through anything that would shake my faith like that. I've never once questioned God through this physical health journey. And in fact, it is something I constantly rely on and fall back to. God, I'm so grateful that you are faithful and that you have shown that time and time and time again in my life. And when I'm having a hard time, that's immediately what I fall back on. God, I'm so grateful. And I praise you for always being faithful in my life.
So just reflecting on your story, you've gone through pain, you've gone through struggle, hospitalization, loneliness, depression, psychosis, all these things, while you're trying to raise 4 little children as well. How would that have been different had you not had this encounter with Jesus, and had he not spoken to you in that worship service and saying, just like oceans, I'm going to be with you through this hard stuff? What would be different?
It's such a hard question because I think it would be completely different. I think the family life would be different. I don't know if I'd be a believer in the Mormon church still, but I don't think I'd believe at all.
What about your marriage?
I don't think I would have one because I don't think she would be here.
And when you say you don't think she would be here, what is that? What do you mean by that?
She would be with God.
Okay.
Postpartum psychosis would have taken me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you had survived that, would you have been able to make it through, what you went through with your surgeries and your neck and all that?
Well, what's interesting, and we talk about this all the time too, the stuff we've gone through, we have almost a saying now, it's, well, how's God going to use this? I can't wait to see how God uses this in the future. So we can take these horrible things, these bad things that happen, we go, it's going to be interesting to see how God uses this, right? Because we didn't survive stuff just for the sake of surviving. God's going to use this in whatever way that he needs to or he sees fit, and it's just going to be very awesome to see when that comes to fruition.
Yeah, I think he said it perfectly when he said I'd be the only one at this table. And if I had survived that, there are many, many times where I've been so sick in bed, days on end with this physical condition, that if I didn't have the relationship I had with Jesus now, I would have been suicidal. People commit suicide every day from the condition I have because it's a jail. And if you can't have a larger perspective, then what is there?
To live for?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's not an easy story to tell. And I know when we talked earlier, as we were prepping for this, you had to dive back into some of the memories, which isn't fun. And, but I know that your hearts in all of this is to share your Jesus story with others, to share the struggle. Like, it's not all roses. No. It's not all easy stuff. And it's, in fact, your story proves that sometimes in following Jesus, he allows you guys to go through things that are kind of like, there's no way, And I just love in the midst of all of it how, even though we didn't get to walk through it like you guys did, but there's a day by day, one day at a time. Even when it's hard and you're wrestling and you're questioning, there's a day by day belief, because you can't question something you don't believe in.
Yeah.
Why would you sit there and question something you don't believe in? Why would you wrestle? Why would you be angry with something that doesn't exist?
Exactly.
And yet, in the middle of it all, you find yourself both that he is faithful and just incredible gratitude, like that you've been expressing, Brooke. Like I think a lot of people watching this might go, how can she be so grateful? Like I'd be so angry if all this stuff that happened to Brooke happened to me. And yet you find yourself going, God, thank you. And I think it's an incredible testimony and a powerful story of how good God is in the midst of tough stuff. So thank you guys for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Trevor. Thanks, Brooke. And maybe we'll see you guys in the future as well.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Come on back.
Thank you for joining the podcast. It's great to have you with us.